Hello and welcome to ET Auto. And today we have casting a special episode on what's in store for car dealership in 2024. We have an illustrious panel from car makers, from Federation of Automobile Dealer Association, and an industry expert from Urban Science talking about the profitability versus sustainability in for car makers as well as for dealership. So first of all, for the panel, I would like to understand, where is the current market headed towards in 2024, and we'll start with Mr. Bajwasan, and then we'll talk to Mr. Bara.
So, first of all, very good afternoon to all of you, all the panelists, and thank you, Dipanshu, for this opportunity. It's very nice interacting with the esteemed panel and with you especially. I think we are all aware of the current situation, the way the things have been moving in this fiscal, right from the month of April. Uh, we've seen certain stress. Yes, you rightly put it across. There is certain stress in the marketplace right now. And I think there are various factors that have contributed to it. I think elections this time have stretched for a very long time, especially in the northern part of the country and the central part of the country. The heat also did impact. And obviously, when we look at car buying, it is all about sentiments. And everybody looks at stability. So I think it was more to do with the sentiments at that point of time. And yes, definitely, there has been a stress in the industry. And we all know that the pent-up demand, which was there in terms of because of the pandemic shortages, all that stuff, I think those things have been, that story is over more or less. I think we are back to normal now. I would say we are back to the situation which we were pre-pandemic times. And that is where the things are heading, according to me right now.
Okay. Mr. Barar, what is your view on the current market situation, last one quarter, April to June, and how do you see coming quarters of this fiscal year?
So we work on calendar year, so maybe, my data would be more on calendar year. So let's look at Jan to June situation. So if you look at Vahan, which is the true representation of the business, the Vahan registrations are almost 4% up year on year, which is 19.28. And if we add Telangana, which is not there, it translates to about 30,000 approximately. Against the wholesale, which is about 8% growth, and wholesale numbers are almost 21.6, which means Vahan is behind by almost 1.3 lakh units on the first 6-month basis. But if you look at the quarter two, that's where I think which is quarter one from a financial year perspective, April to June quarter, that's where I think the stress has started coming. For example, let's look at June, where the decline year on year is almost 7%. So that clearly shows the stress is there. Even May was less than 3 lakh units Vahan registration, which has not happened. Even this month, the forecast was almost 3.25. Looks like it will end up at almost 3.1 lakh units. So clearly it is showing stress in the market. And some of the reasons why quarter two didn't go so well, or quarter one from a financial year perspective, because elections were there. So I think there was a lot of action happening around elections. Even the investment which government was making in infrastructure, it has not been so strong because it was an interim budget. I hope after the budget yesterday, the investment starts flowing in again, and that should give a boost in the second half. I think the slowdown across Europe and US also, which had impacted IT, and we can see the southern region of the country is not doing so great. Even in case of rural, we could see there are some 8 to 9 states where the monsoon is in negative, while there was a positive indication that monsoon would do well, but that has not been the case. And also, as Satinder mentioned, I think the pent-up demand has now over. And we now have to depend a lot on the fresh bookings or the fresh inflow. But one thing which did not really kick in so far till the previous year is, if we see pre-COVID to now, the prices have gone up by almost 30 to 35% for cars, but the demand was still very, very strong. And I think this price elasticity has now started kicking in because the salary levels or the income levels haven't gone up to the level which we expected. And on top of that, probably we were operating on inflation of 5 to 6%. So if the income levels were growing by 8 to 10% and inflation was at 6%, so practically, the net CAGR of income growth is only 4 to 5%, whereas the car prices over so many years have gone up by almost 35%. So I think these are some of the areas which have played around. Now, in the second half, the hope is that this pent-up demand of quarter two, which has taken some kind of hit, may come in, and it is expected that festival period we may see some uptick in terms of business. But we are still, I would say, cautiously optimistic. I wouldn't say it is going to be tremendous growth, but things are likely to get slightly better versus the previous quarter, which has just gone by. And with especially investment coming from the government. And if you look at some of the other indicators, I think stock market has done fairly well on this while, and I think that also gives boost to the confidence of consumers. But when we look at certain pockets, as I mentioned, South IT hubs are getting impacted. I think Telangana and Andhra Pradesh are especially weak in terms of overall business. So that's my take. Second half is going to be, but if you see second half year on year, I think it may not look very good because last year's second half base has been consistently above 3.5 lakhs, especially in terms of wholesale. So while wholesale is showing a growth of 4%, but I think by end of this year, we may be almost a flat or maybe 1% growth over.
Right, right. So, as you mentioned about the budget did not had really, positive impact in terms of the income levels of the middle class, specifically in the upper middle class, who are the buyers of passenger vehicles for in particular. What is your view in terms of, would like to understand from Sudhinder sir as well, and overall panel, in terms of, what is that will impact in like, do you think festive season gonna be as good as it was last year versus last year, or it will have a slightly more discounting this time and things like that?
So I think, as Hardeep also mentioned, that last year the festival season was very good, and there was still some pent-up demand that was there last year, and last year has been quite heavy. So I would say that let's remain positive on this thing that the festival season should go well, because I don't see any reason why the festival season should not go well. So let's remain optimistic. As Hardeep said, we are also cautiously optimistic right now, but we are all hopeful that the festival season. And as I said, it is very important to remain positive for the simple reason. And I keep making this statement that whether it is a house buying or it is a car buying, it is all about sentiments. If we are able to uplift the sentiments, I think things would turn positive. But yes, let's remain optimistic. We are quite confident that the things should improve. But yes, last year base has been quite heavy. Let's not forget that. And this year, if you look at it, largely the growth, whatever Hardeep mentioned in the calendar year, the growth that has been driven is largely driven by the new launches that have happened in this year. Right? If you subtract that launches, the new launches, the industry is almost minus 12% even in the calendar year till the month of June.
Mhm. Got it, got it. So we'll bring in Mr. Manish here to give us the real picture on the dealership front, what kind of trends he's seeing, and he will give us the insight on ground reality of the market sentiment. Mr. Manish, what's your view on this?
So, as I'll just build on what Hardeep said, the overall Q1 growth of passenger car has been around 2.53%. What we really need to understand that in PV, we are already on a very, very high note. The numbers had peaked and we had created kind of Mount Everest in terms of retail last financial year. And crossing those Mount Everest will be easy. And Q1 was also, especially the June month, was troubled by the extreme heat condition that the country faced across. And plus, there was around 10% deficit in rainfall in the month of June. So we did a internal survey amongst our dealers. In PV, there was almost 16% less walk-in, which was attributed to the extreme heat that came in the month of June. That finally resulted in the lack of retails. Plus, definitely the full budget not being there, plus delayed monsoon, plus the political instability kind of faltered the June numbers. Though the expectation was there, but these are the major reasons which could be attributed towards the lesser June numbers. As per dealership, in our survey, dealers are still 80% optimistic about retails. They want to, their expectation is there, and July has been very good. Now, most of the, we are kind of, monsoons are covering the complete nations. But as Hardeep again said, few states are still troubled by lesser monsoons. And we now have a full-fledged budget wherein government has earmarked a lot of spend on rural economy. Urban economy for the last 3 years, we have been seeing the post-COVID that has done fantastically well. The numbers are rolling and everything looks positive. It was the Bharat of India which was not able to contribute or be a part of this growth story. So here's what it took maximum time to recover. And things have been looking positive since last November. We are seeing a steady growth in rural market, and plus the contribution of rural market is also increasing. That expectation will continues, and now the government has allocated huge around 11 lakh crore in terms of infrastructure spend. Plus for Rabi crops, they have allotted additional MSP increase of almost 35,000 crores for the Rabi crop. All this would increase the fund flow in the rural market. And if we have the good quality, good quantity of rain spread evenly across India, that would be a boon to the rural economy. That will finally result with good money in their hands. And finally, whenever a rural market gets money, either it's land or vehicle. So we do expect if the monsoon kind of prevails well, it's evenly spread, and we have a good quality quantity of crop, then we can definitely expect rural contribution going up in the festival season. So as dealers, we are apart from the stock level, probably we'll talk later, but apart from the stock level, overall dealers are optimistic, and definitely the launch, what Satinder said, it will also the excitement, the sentiment what Satinder was talking about, the new models launches that OEMs have been planning pre-festival, that will play a critical role in exciting the market. So new model launches will definitely look forward to, and they'll excite the market and enhance the contribution of in terms of retail and numbers.
Got it. Got it. Thank you so much for your insight. Mr. Amit, what is your viewpoint in terms of as an independent consultant in a research company? How do you see the Indian market right now in terms of both at inventory levels as well as from the market sentiment point of view? And coming to quarters, how do you see?
Thank you, Dipanshu. I think from a consulting perspective, from our perspective, what we have been seeing as a trend, there has been certain segments, specific segment that has been under pressure, and that pressure has been actually visible in the overall market. So those initial level, I would say, especially those sectors and segments were not seeing those tractions because of certain reasons that my co-panelists have already explained, like heat and those rural pressures and so on. But going forward, I think increasing urbanization, good financing, which is improving financing, vehicle financing these days, maybe expansion of highways and so on, which government is putting in a lot of infrastructure, I would say funds. Beside that, they have pumped in a good amount in rural, I would say, demand as well, which will pump up the rural demand. And on top of it, I think the real driver, which I foresee in next couple of months, is gonna be the new launches that's been planned by various OEMs towards, I would say, latest technology, towards the latest consumer trends, towards particularly SUVs, and particularly those segment which is driving the overall momentum. So those particular segments will definitely lead us to a positive territory at the end of year. That's what our expectation is. But robust demand of especially the UV segment will continue. That's our expectation. There has been some piled up, I would say, inventory, but I think that is again specific segments. Otherwise, the overall market hasn't been so great the way we have been seeing those growth patterns in past 2 years. It has been almost flat, or I would say a single digit growth. But over a period of time, things should improve. The long term, I would say, forecast looks very, very promising.
So according to Mr. Amit, for industry looks promising in coming quarters, and as the panelists also said that they will be cautiously optimistic, and we have to uplift the sentiment. But talking about in the market reality, there were products which were on a huge waiting period, about 24 months, and now they are uh, car makers are slashing down their prices. Would not name the models as such, but to name a in particular. But there are popular models who are on discounting right now, which were earlier on a high inventory level. So that speaks a lot about the market right now. So would like to understand on the discounting strategies, the new variant strategies that companies are working on, especially from Mr. Barar and Mr. Surinder, about how car makers are dealing with this particular situation in terms of how they are planning to bring more models as well as new ways of attracting buyers in the market.
I think there is no rocket science here. I think we all been using two strategies whenever the stock levels are going up. And yes, as I mentioned, this year itself, it has gone up by almost 1.6 lakh units this year, and plus the carry forward inventory of last year. So, two strategies. Clearly, everybody tries to look at, the go-to market, which is, looking at consumer offers, which attracts the consumer, be it increasing the exchange offer or the insurance or whatever, so that you try to reduce the transaction price for the consumer and give him a price point which becomes more attractive for him. So that is strategy one, which I think most of the OEMs are working on. And yes, as you rightly mentioned, the average discount levels in Q2 have certainly gone up significantly, and it is only going up every month. The other thing is, rationalizing production, and wherever you feel that the inventory is not moving, the natural tendency is to cut down on production. And I think all the OEMs are now looking at now, especially when the inventory level has crossed almost 50 to 55 days. I think that's a very natural trend. To look at, rationalizing the production so that you don't go beyond that. And on the other side, improving the retail through all the consumer offers which are there to bring down. So creating that gap is what will bring the situation under control. And I think everybody is working in that direction.
Thank you so much. Mr. Brar, Mr. Satinder, your.
So I think I just want to add to what Hardeep said. One is I think we are continuously working with the plant very closely and produce those models where the movement is good, clearly. And also we are working on how we have to help the dealers to liquidate the aged stock that they are carrying with them, because that is an additional burden that they are carrying with them. So we are taking a very different approach in terms of supporting the dealers in terms of liquidation of those things. And as far as discounting in the market is concerned, consumer discounts definitely have gone up. And as you said, that most of the models which few months back or few days back were on waiting are all off the shelf right now. I think it's not only about the cash discounts, it is all about how you are actually packaging the whole offer to the consumer, which makes it exciting. But I think it's very important to mention here, while we are looking at additional offers to the consumers, it should not happen at the cost of the dealers. I think that is something which requires a lot of balancing. Otherwise, it puts undue pressure on the dealers. So we've taken certain very cautious calls, conscious calls, where we are now, if we are adding up certain things or we are adding sweetener to the consumer offers, we are doing it at our cost. Even in terms of liquidation support, wherever it is there, we have taken a call that we will do it at our cost so that dealers do not take that additional burden of the. I think I want to mention one or two more things which are very critical for me to mention right now. Let's look at it, Dipanshu, this industry is cyclic. I mean, if you track this industry for the last 20, 25 years, you would
Right.
find, I mean, this is nothing new that we are seeing this time. In fact, COVID has given us one more year of, that positive cycle. Otherwise, you 2 or 3 years you do well, and then you have 1 or 2 years where you have certain challenging times. I
Right.
think there are two things which one has to keep in mind. One is whenever there is a challenging time, it puts a lot of pressure, whether it is a manufacturer or it is the dealer. And this brings in a lot of friction between the relationship between the two partners. I
Right.
think both as a OEM, as dealers, I think this is the time when everyone has to really understand each other very well and ensure that maturity remains and relationship does not take a different turn. That's
Right.
very, very critical during these difficult times. Of
Mhm.
course, manufacturers need to handhold the dealers during these difficult times, challenging times, but dealers also need to understand few things. One is they have to make sure that every single asset that they have with them, they have to optimize productivity from their assets. And also, very critical that dealers need to take care of their manpower also during these difficult times.
Right.
If you will not keep your manpower motivated, if you will not keep your attritions under control, your cost of sales at the dealer end is also going to get impacted. To me,
Right.
I think some of additional things I just want to add to what Hardeep said. These are very critical during these challenging times for the dealers to take care of.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Satinder. Mr. Manish, would like to bring you in and understand from you how dealers are coping up with this particular situation. And as Mr. Satinder said about how you are able to take care of the manpower, the attrition rates, as well as on the asset optimization. And what else you're doing in terms of the dealer level? What kind of strategy you're playing to bring in more customers in to your showrooms, more footfalls in? Because car makers have their own role of bringing nice, good products. But at dealer, you being a sales partner, you need to bring in more customers in. So, what is your how the dealers are doing on the consumer front? As Manish,
I think Manish is not on call.
I think Mohima, can you check once, and I'll then we'll talk to Mr. Amit meanwhile. So, Mr.
Sure.
Amit, how are you seeing the so, so, Mr. Amit, I would like to understand from you, as mentioned by Mr. Barar and Mr. Satinder about the overall situation right now, how dealers are now trying to be afloat at this particular situation, being the high inventory levels, how they're trying to be profitable.
Devanshu, I think I would like to add a couple of things to what Mr. Brar and Mr. Bajwa said here. Uh, Dealership as a business is a partnering business between OEM and dealer principal. Now, dealer is here to make profits, but profits is not just an outcome of just, I would say, lower inventory levels or something like that. That has been actually, there has been a lot of noise around the subject. It is a function of good product, good operation management by dealers, good dealer involvement, and good territory management. Now, what Mr. Bajwa said, I echo the same sentiment. Car business is a seasonality based business. So sometimes you have a very, very good tenure for say a couple of years, and then you go for some challenging times because of XYZ reasons. That includes your technologies improvement, your, I would say, consumer expectations, and so on and so forth. But in these challenging times, it's really, really important, of course, to look into some other areas to improve and to sustain the overall, I would say, business. Business involvement is really, really important from the business, I would say, principal perspective in these kind of challenging times. It is really important to look at your alternative strategy. That includes your, I would say, asset utilization that Mr. Bajwa just said. But beside the fact, of course, you focus on your alternative, I would growth strategy that includes your service department efficiency improvement, boost your online presence, boost your used car presence, boost your customer experience, and so on and so forth. So in totality, if we look at the overall car business, it's a partnering, and again, it's a matter of, I would say, just I would say continuing in those tough times and supporting each other. I would say as a good, I would say partners and good fellow partners during those tough challenges. And probably over a period of time, what we definitely see is the good festival season is coming. If you work on those, retaining those manpower issues, also the manpower expenses, control your manpower expenses, retain your good manpower in those tough times. Work on those alternative strategies is the key during during those challenging times. So that's my take on the overall situation.
Got it. So, Mr. Manish, would like to bring you in, and Mr. Satinder has kind of said that it's a cyclical industry. But OEMs have their own role of bringing new products, good products, time to time, excite the market with new features and everything. Dealers have their own role of bringing customers in, bringing more footfalls in. So, what kind of strategies at dealership level, as FAD also you're trying to help dealers in terms of create that excitement level, being in this tough time where inventories are all time high.
So, say yes, definitely we are talking about tough times, but I totally first of all acknowledge both Mr. Braz and Mr. Satinder's statement that the inventories are a bit high, tad high, and we have calculated the inventory to be 60 to 67 days across various OEMs on an average, and the quantum of inventory is close to 6 to 6.5 lakh crores. Lakh vehicles, and in terms of valuation, it is coming to 60,000 crore. So, see, the cost of inventory is one of the salary and inventory is one of the highest at the dealership. They contribute the maximum cost to a dealer. And Indian dealerships, somehow or the other, we operate on an average margin of 3.5 to 5%, and resulting on an overall, net retention margin of 0.9% to 1.25%. So any stress on, in terms of inventory above 30 days adds a lot of has a lot of effect on the bottom line of the dealers. And looking at our number of surveys and understanding, a dealer having above 30 days paid up stock starts losing money on it. And more so ever, when we know that we are at the start of the monsoon season, which is the lowest point of the auto industry, July and August, it would be tough to retail. So, and at this level, we are having this kind of inventory. It's really, a pain for the dealership across India. Before festivals, definitely everybody tries to build up inventory so that we can address consumer demands and whatever his or her requirements may be. So, inventory management is one critical point that we are being talking to dealers. We have also written to SIAM also, and probably SIAM would also be taking the inventory issue amongst its executive council meeting. So we are very worried about the inventory level, and we wish that it should come down. We had a very good inventory in December, January, February. Inventories had come down to 42 days, and after that it has been going up steadily. So I hope OEM Satinder talked about the health of the dealerships, and that is very critical. We lost almost 280 dealers during the 2019 crisis. Something of that similar should not happen. And it's a very, a very slow process bringing up a new dealership, setting up of the operation, building a relationship with the customer. It takes a lot of years and time and energy, both from the OEM as well as the dealership. So it has to be, how do you stabilize, how do you coach, how do you handle, how do you make your dealership, existing dealer profitable? And we have a long relationship with OEMs. Dealers are run over generations. So that's there. And we, as Amit already said, we have around the corner, we have just festivals waiting for us. And with the right kind of controls at this low time can bring about a lot of synergy in the market. So I think what we'll be also be talking in times to come. We are talking about say for example, the limits are in with some few OEMs. The limits are also not even in control of the dealers. They are forced bill by some OEMs. So that needs to stop. The limits should be controlled by the dealership as and when the dealership requires the inventory, accordingly, the choice should be of the dealer to get the inventory built. So unnecessary dumping of stocks at the dealership will not result in any benefit either to OEM or to the dealer. So I think effective, prudent inventory management right now is the most burning topic amongst dealers, and that's how I wish we come down to an inventory level for August at least for the 45 days, and so that we can jumpstart the festival season.
Right. Thank you so much, Manish. Mr. Amit would like to talk about inventory. What's your company's research talks about? And we'll all like to understand from Mr. Barar and Satinder as well about the overall profitability of dealership. Does over dealerization is one of the key concern areas where these inventory levels get pushed in, and not particularly for Kia or MG, but as an overall industry.
Dipanshu, just to add our thoughts here, from our perspective, what we have been seeing since past couple of decades, we have been into dealer profitability monitoring business. And short-term and long-term interest expense actually generally contributes between 11 to 17% of overall expenses that we're talking here. Overall expenses I'm talking. This is an average I'm talking of car industry particularly, right? So now this is really important to understand that if we have to control a chunk of between 11 to 17%. That's the highest limit and lowest limit of inventory. Short term and long term we are talking here. Beside the fact there are miscellaneous expenses which contributes roughly 25% to, I would say, 30 to 33%, some cases 35% also. So at this point in time, I just wanted to put in our thoughts here that at this point in time, it is very, very important that yes, inventory is high in certain segments, but beside the fact we need to also control, optimize our expenses, work on our alternative strategy, driving our business with involvement is really, really important. And getting into the situation, getting into the productivity, efficiency improvement programs, I think these things are really, really critical at this stage. Looking into, I would say, the sales consultant productivity, the service advisor kind of productivity. So all those, I think it is easy to control some parameters. It's very simpler to control certain efficiency parameters compared to when we say inventory. Inventory is an outcome of a long-term planning. Inventory is an outcome of long-term planning, which has been planned a couple of months back. And it takes a little bit of time from this procurement to supply chain to ultimately coming to the dealers. And that is driven by sentiments, that's driven by those market research that generally OEMs have. So I would say our take here will be simply work on those optimization and efficiency improvement programs. And parallelly, of course, in our understanding, most of the OEMs are very cautious. They are largely very, very sensitive towards those inventory, I would say, bubbling up. But expectations from the upcoming festive season and working on those on those areas of working on those optimization will definitely bring the overall profitability improvement here.
Thank you, Mr. Amit. Mr. Barar and Mr. Sundar would like to understand from you about the inventory levels. Is it because of the over-utilization also for certain OEMs, or it is it's not quietly good spread of dealership across the country? And how do you see the overall things in terms of profitability of dealership, where OEMs are trying to help dealership handhold things in this particular time?
So, see, if you look at the profitability, let's compare the profitability this year versus last couple of years. Where have things, gone up in terms of expenses, whereas, incomes have improved? Clearly, I think we are talking about inventory levels going up. So, moment it moves from 1 month to, let's say, 2 months inventory, clearly that adds 1% to your overall expenses as a percentage of your turnover. I think that is one thing where things have deteriorated. I think second big factor, which also comes as a combination of higher stocks, is discounts. I think there were no discounts in last couple of years, and now discounts are taking a big chunk of the overall expenses. So out of the total margin of 5%, 5 to 6%, which dealers have on all put together. So the cars which are extremely slow moving, for example, if you look at hatchbacks and sedans, where the decline is huge versus last year, I think there practically the entire margin is going away. SUVs are still growing at 15 to 20%. I think while the discounts have started there as well, but it is relatively under control. Same is with MPVs. The discounts are under control because MPVs are also the fastest growing this month. So, depending upon what kind of mix you have, your discount percentages vary, and it can vary from anywhere between 1 to 4% depending upon what is the kind of mix you have. So that is a second big factor which has really impacted the dealers. So I think in terms of rentals are constant 5 to 10% increment. Some people have every 3 years 15%. So rentals remain more or less same. Manpower also remain, but manpower, mind you, is one of the biggest expense for the dealership business. It is almost 1/3 of your expenses are actually coming from manpower, right? So this is the biggest one, and the more churn you have. So while it is the most highest expense, but it can also give you the highest productivity if you handle it well. I think both Satinder and Manish spoke about the importance of manpower. So if you have a regular churn, your manpower cost is not going to change. But when you have a higher churn, the new person who's coming in, he is not able to give the throughput that you expect him to do. And I understand in the industry, in the sales area, the sales consultant attrition is as high as 30%. So you can imagine 30% of the dealership manpower is unproductive because that 30% is not going to fire immediately. It takes at least 3 to 6 months for a new sales consultant to come and start firing. So while manpower incremental cost to the dealer varies from anywhere about 10%, but when we compare with last 3 years, that is not such a big increment. So your biggest two cases continue to remain interest and discount when you compare with the last 3 years. So this is what has really dented the overall profitability of the dealership. But on the income side, I think now after sales has started playing a bigger role because as your margins in new cars are coming down, all the allied businesses, because finance, insurance, accessories, labor, and parts business, this is what will certainly grow as a percentage in terms of your overall income. So I think some of the panelists spoke about laying more, I think Amit spoke about laying more emphasis on allied businesses and after sales. I think that is the time. This is the area which will cushion us against all the impacts which comes along with the higher interest cost as well as the higher discounting.
Got it. Mr. Bajwa, your view.
Yeah. So Dipanshu, I'm going to make a little hard statement, and sorry for being a little harsh and very upfront. See what has happened during the pandemic. I think whether it is us as manufacturers or dealer partners, we've largely been kind of, and it's not only auto industry, it is across the industry, different industry segments you look at. We've largely been trying to meet up the consumer demand. You had a demand which was higher than the supplies. Somewhere during that phase, I think people have forgotten the basic principles of retailing also. My first point would be that I think we have to learn what we have unlearned in this last 2-3 years, and we have to start bringing a complete focus on our retailing business. Ours is not a distribution business. Ours is a retailing business. I think to me that is very, very critical. Second thing, I think other people have also mentioned, we need to really work on simplification of our processes. We have to ensure that the processes today are relevant and they are relevant to the current times. Many times, you continue working with the proven processes, which over a period of time might have become redundant. So I think that's another area which I would say people have to really look at that. We really need to relook at, as manufacturers, we need to look at how to work and how to build upon the dealer profitability, dealer retention during these difficult times. As I said, every single inquiry matters. How dealership works on conversion of every single inquiry. It's a time where all basics need to be revisited. And I normally use a very common phrase: when the things get tough, go back to basics. Those are the things which are going to help you in these difficult times. For example, at MG, we took up a project 2 months back. I said, I had put up my entire team. We said, let's take up, we call it a project Rescend, where we said we will visit every single thing at our dealership, right from sales, service, spares, stockyards, accessory business, and let's find out opportunity how we can improve in every single area. One, it will help us improve the dealer bottom line. Second, it will also impact the customer centricity in a very, very positive manner. Another thing, we all know we are all living now in a digital age. Now, dealers have to start looking at, many times I see people complaining that the walk-ins are drying down. I think we have to all accept the fact that digital is a new walk-in. And digital has to be treated the way you treat a walk-in customer today at your dealership. So to me, treat your dealership as a one-stop shop. Look at every single opportunity that you have to connect with the customer, to service the customer. Focus on building up your retail capabilities, retain your manpower, improve the productivity of your manpower by taking care of them and by incentivizing them. I always believe it is good to give incentive to your own people rather than getting into dirty discount war, which doesn't actually benefit anyone, right? So these are few of my thoughts on what has to be done right now in the current situation.
Mr. Amit would like to chip in here and give your insights here as a consultant. How do you see the digital and the offline thing gelling up together, and how it is important for the dealers to optimize these things?
Digital is very, very important. As Mr. Bajwa mentioned here, digital is the new era, and we have to treat digital inquiries more seriously going forward. There are products, there are segments that generally even companies that are working on strategy towards, direct to customer, direct to through, I would say, dealers. So in those eras, it is really important because the digital plays a very, very critical role. And over a period of time, what is going to happen is digital is gonna flourish further. So it is very, very important for any dealers to look at the digital inquiries very seriously. Beside the fact, they also start engaging their older customer databases, start looking at the customers they might have already sold, customer retention programs. Customer centricity is really, really important. So look at your alternative strategies towards improving your top line, and that start, even you already have an ocean of data, which you already have a car being serviced at your end. So start looking at that customer not only as a service customer, start looking at this customer that he might be your an upgradation customer, he might be your replacement customer, and so on. So all those things need to be reevaluated. Go back to basics again, Mr. Bajwa mentioned here. So naturally, all those strategies of customer retention is really, really important, and engaging that customer who is already there within your network it again becomes very critical. Beside the fact you generate new inquiries through walk-ins and through digital, it is equally important to retain the customer and build in the trust that so that this customer actually comes back to your brand and again becomes a loyal customer to you. So that's another thing I would like to add here.
Mr. Manish would like to understand from you, like Mr. Bajwa said about the digital sales. That is very important, as good as offline walking customers. So, what are the key strategies dealerships are playing in terms of bringing more walk-ins, as well as OEMs are also working with dealers to, I think, provide leads in particular area. So, what's your view on that, and how things can move forward in this particular year? And then we'll bring to the last question of this particular webinar.
So yeah, digital is definitely important. As FADA, we have also tied up with Google and Meta both, and we have got online physical training courses also for dealer fraternity, and we have completed with those two companies almost two sitting courses, and then we had a stupendous response. A lot of learning from the dealership end. There are feedbacks that OEMs definitely give, but a hand-on experience with these two companies who kind of rule the digital space had been very knowledgeable, and small things in terms of creating reels, how reels can excite the consumer or keep your customer connected. That those were really, and how to create a reel itself. Those were the few learning that I can recollect. Very interesting sessions, and digital is a space that dealers really need to continuously look forward to. What I need to understand, what I need to emphasize with the OEMs here is, see, when the concept of digital came, there was a kind of understanding, or both from it. See, it's a learning curve definitely, but your cost of acquisition will somehow go down, and per inquiry cost of acquisition will definitely go down. That was an understanding, and the convenience of getting that inquiry would be very good. You just have to be on the digital space, and finally you could acquire that inquiry through digital mediums, attraction, and all that. But finally, what has happened at the dealership? It has just created a new department now. We have a digital department now. We've got another 10 manpower deployed in that department, additional manpower. Please, it has not replaced any manpower at the dealership. It has created additional 10 manpower or 15 manpower, depending on the size of the dealership or whatever. And in terms of infrastructure, we need all those facilities to make reels, create reels. We need to be digitally present in everywhere, whether it is websites or social media platforms or Google. It is so strongly driven that the need of that digital presence is very much, very heartfelt by the OEM as well as the dealer. Dealer also wants to be there for that inquiry acquisition. So it has only finally added to the cost of the dealership. Definitely, there is a average. We did a survey around 4% conversion is there from digital medium. That is definitely there. But the kind of cost replacement that we could foresee, that has not happened. We need to still, as Mr. Barma said, times have come that we need to be connected to the field again, connected to the basics. And basics is again, you start doing loan mailers, exchange mailers, and reaching out to customer at their own places. So where is digital now? So that's a big question mark at the dealership, and every dealer is wondering whether this 4% contribution will go to 20% or not. So on any digital space you advertise, you have a dump of inquiries, but the quality of inquiries is always an issue. Second, I would also want to elaborate on Amit's talk on productivity. So productivity is a very big challenge for auto industry in India. On an average, the industry is working at a productivity of 4 to 5 vehicles per sales consultant, and that is very, very poor. As OEMs, as dealers, we need to collaborate very strongly to how to increase this productivity. See, manpower is getting costlier every day, and as Hardeep said, manpower adds a lot of cost to the dealership also. How do we derive the maximum from that manpower? During this NADA visit to America in Vegas, we visited 3, 4 dealerships. the average manpower productivity in Vegas was 12 to 15 vehicles per SC. And there was a dealership in Dallas where the manpower productivity was 30 vehicles per FSC, counter sales consultant. So that's the crazy number that we could see in US. That's what we need to aspire here in India. How do we OEM dealers together take our manpower to that level and reduce our dependency on this expensive resource actually. And if you we dealership work on a very 70-30 ratio also. The 30% of the manpower are contributing towards the 70% of retail. And 70% of the manpower contributes towards 30% of the retail. So that's an average across the dealership. That's another point of worry. So we really need to do a lot of work here. Times how can we maximize our resources? How we can maximize the productivity of our resources? That's a lot of training, lot of things. Somewhere we might be going wrong, or somewhere we are not being able to pinpoint what exactly is wrong, how we are not able to increase the productivity, why only 30% of the manpower is selling 70%, doing 70% of the retail, why the emphasis of keeping more number of manpowers rather than only talking about productivity. These are few things that can matter to the industry a lot, ensure the health of the dealership, and if the obviously productivity increases, the OEMs also will be happy. So it's a handshake here. So that's my point here.
So, as the industry, as Mr. Manish pointed out about the productivity issue, and we are very far behind the developed market like America. So, as an OEMs, as an industry, how do we can bridge that gap? What are the things that OEMs are planning to do at their front and at the sales training side of things, as well as from the getting that quality manpower into the system? Mr. Bajwa, your inputs, and then we move to Mr. Bala, and we close this discussion after this.
So, Dipanshu, I think OEMs are continuously working towards these things. And Manish would be able to add to it that during the pandemic times, the productivity of single guy went up to as high as 6 to 7 cars in India also. Right. Again, I come back to the same thing. It's all about demand supply. Right now, if there is a constraint, if there's a stress in the market, you need to spend more time on a customer when it comes to converting a customer. Number one. Number two, still, as I said, our problem is not only this. Our problem is getting the right kind of manpower in the dealerships. It's a challenge. Let's accept the fact. Second challenge is also which and Manish is on the call, and I would request Manish to hear it very carefully, because today what is happening is that we are, as when it comes to our HR practices at the dealership, I think there's a lot that needs to be done there also. While OEM has a responsibility to take care, to work hand in hand with the dealers to improve training levels, productivity of people. But retention is something which OEMs cannot do. This is something a dealer and a dealer employee relationship. So how that employs, as Manish said, there are 30% of his people, not his people, the overall industry you mentioned, who are selling 70% of the cars. Now, we would like to understand what is it that the dealer body requires to improve this 30% beyond that. And number one, why we talk of only sales? As I said, dealership should look at itself as a one-stop shop. One person, to me, even in India, if you are able to achieve a productivity of 5 and you are able to, sell customer all the things that he needs when he's buying a car, whether it is insurance, whether it is finance, whether it is accessories, I think it is an optimum productivity, because it also, one has to keep in mind, in India the customer is very sensitive when he is being handled at the dealership. There, a car buying is a very, very emotional decision. I don't think abroad it is such an emotional decision. Here it is a very, very emotional decision. You need to really have an emotional connect with the customer. Therefore, the time that our people need to spend with the customer is far higher than you need to spend there. And outside, most of the people have pre-decided what they want to buy, which model they want to buy, and they are coming to the dealership largely to negotiate or take the delivery and make the payment and all. Here it's a different. I mean, if you go to rural India, one guy would come, and along with him there are 10 other people who are coming. So just look at this poor single guy who's not only managing one guy who's going to buy a car, he has to take care of those 9 other people also who have come along with him. To kind of give him this confidence that your decision is correct. So I think I agree with Manish that we need to work on improving productivity together, but it has to be both the ways, where OEMs can contribute and the dealer body has to really work upon bringing the attrition under control. I remember few years back, we were so sensitive the moment we used to see attrition is more than 10% at a dealership. We used to be so sensitive at the dealership that why people are leaving. Today, Hardeep probably mentioned 30%. There may be more than 30%. I think we need to look at this because this is a cost. Every time if you'll have an attrition of 30% or 40% in your dealerships, just imagine the dealerships are basically becoming training academies, training grounds. And so are the OEMs because they are investing in terms of training people. So I think this is an area which we need to really work on. And digital cannot be, again, I'm saying digital cannot be overlooked. How we can improve, how can build on our digital ecosystem in our dealership, strengthen our hyper local is what will make a lot of difference. I know of certain dealerships where almost 20% of the sales is also coming through digital route. So I think this is of course this is something new in our system, and thanks to COVID has really kind of, I would say, really helped us speed up our learning on digital, which probably otherwise would not happen at this pace. So I think we need to all together work on these areas to make the dealerships profitable, and I think to build this relationship between continue to keep this relationship solid and strengthened between the OEM and the dealership, but without forgetting that we have to take care of our customers first, because we survive because of our customers at the end of the day.
Mr. Bra, your summing point.
Okay. I think we debated a lot on why the productivity of the sales consultant is lower versus productivity of some of these Western countries. And there were two conclusions, because we have a lot of people who have had global exposure. So firstly, it was found that in India, the number of casual inquiries are far too many. Where customer just says, okay, let me put an inquiry, but you have to handle every inquiry. And even the showroom visits, Indian consumer visits more number of showrooms probably versus the Western counterpart. And it also boils down to one thing that, Indian consumer has more time on hand versus them. I think those people are very clear, okay, they will do their research online, they will check, okay, this brand is okay, everything happens online and they just finalize and go for it. Whereas in our case, the casual inquiries are far bigger than them. And what we found out is the average conversion rate in India is about 15%, ballpark, which means, and the average number of cars which is sold by KEC is about 4 cars, I would say, if we take an average, while all of us plan 1:5. But I think the ultimate average is 1:4 or 4.5, which means every KEC has to handle about 35 to 40 inquiries to sell 4 to 5 cars. And this is where, and moment you start giving him more inquiries, and then he will not give the amount of attention, as Satinder also mentioned, if he has to sell everything, insurance, finance, and all the other things. And then the documentation also, while, we are saying we are going digital, still to get all the documents from the customer to process his loan also takes a lot of time. So at every step, to follow up with the consumer, even once he makes up his mind to buy the car, I think the number of follow-ups which are required in India are far more than the other countries. And midway customers say, oh, I'll take more time. And when we look at our booking cancellation, almost 1/3 of the booking cancellation happened because either the customer does not have enough funds or his credit rating is not very good, and hence the loan also gets rejected. I think the complexities, and this is where if FADA can help us as well, because you keep going to different automotive associations, if you can do a little bit of benchmarking that how they are able to sell 15 cars, and in India the average is only 4 cars. I don't think the skill level would be so different. I think it is to do with the consumer, how consumer really gets into the game. Because when I look at India, we were doing an analysis. My best KEC in India has done 150 cars last year, which means an average of 12. So if you're best, and I think we had about 150 odd case sales consultant who have sold more than 100 cars. So there are people, but when you look at them, I think they are very, very efficient. They know, which person to spend time with, which person to drop. And of course, and this would be what, not even 2% of the universe that we have in India. So I think a lot of research needs to go into this to understand how we can, bring their efficiency up, and I think that would be the right direction. But for that, till we reach there, I think we have to go with a more manpower intensive methodology till we find the solution to it. Otherwise, or one can do an experiment and say, okay, this dealership will only keep manpower based on 1:10, and let's see whether we reach the volumes which we want to. And if you don't reach
Right.
that, clearly shows,
Right.
so I think it is somewhere quality versus quantity.
Right.
And I think somebody needs to take a dip here and see whether this is really possible or not. Yeah, so that's my view. But manpower, yes, is the most critical one, and holding on to manpower is even more critical.
Yeah. So closing to the discussion, and I would like to just ask one last question. What are the two key important points to keep in mind for car dealerships or passenger vehicle market in 2024? We can start with Mr. Bajwa Barar, Mr. Amit Kaushik, and then Mr. Manish. And then we can close.
I
Two
think
important things
to me,
to-
yeah. So Dipanshu, to me, I think, as I said, balance the relationship between manufacturer and the dealer in these difficult times. Dealers must take care, must utilize, must be optimum in a most optimum way, utilize their assets. And and as manufacturers, I think we need to hold hand of dealers in these difficult times. That's very, very critical and important. And third thing is, I think to me, very, very critical is, as I said, go back to basics, take care of your people. That's very important for me right now.
Yeah, to me, good financial management and good people management. I think if we are able to balance these two, and I would say third would be good operations management. If we are able to manage these three things, and people are the ones which make these two things happen. Of course, finance is more handled by the finance team and the dealer principal. But I think these three critical components, if we bring in, I think things are sorted by and large.
For me, I think it's already covered. Most of the elements are covered, but more involvement of DPs, as well as focus on allied businesses is really, really important at this critical stage.
Okay, we'll close the discussion here, and thank you so much, everyone, for giving the valuable insights and being so candid about everything that we have discussed. And it was wonderful chatting with you. And see you on Friday when we stream this session. We'll share the links with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dipanshu. Thanks, everyone.